Welcome to accessibility testing. This is going to be an overview of what accessibility testing is, as well as testing effects and types of use. We are also going to talk about regulatory compliance items. And we will have a brief overview of accessibility standards. We'll cover the challenges of implementing accessibility testing and the importance of both planning and test result documentation. You will also be presented with a short list of accessibility testing tools. This is a short list, and there are quite a few more out there that offer both free and paid-for versions. Most paid-for versions offer free trials. Keep in mind, accessibility tools are often built into development and office tools. For additional information and a variety of professional level training courses and certification options, visit @sqa.org. That's atsqa.org. So, let's take a look at the topics we will be covering. What is accessibility testing? And why is accessibility testing important? What is inclusive design? And what does it have to do with accessibility? What are the benefits of accessibility and accessibility testing? What are a few unique features associated with testing accessibility? Which types of testing are useful for this type of testing? Also, a listing of regulatory compliance laws and accessibility standards currently active in the U.S. And because we share things throughout the world, we will also go over descriptions of 3 international standards on accessibility websites and mobile apps. Also, we will need to talk about the challenges accessibility adds to the testing process. Last, we will list available tools for both manual and automated accessibility testing. Accessibility and inclusive designs are intertwined with each other. In other words, practicing inclusive design leads to increased application accessibility. Inclusive design focuses on a human-centric design approach. In other words, functionality that is designed to work for humans intuitively. Actively including accessibility design and functional requirements. Accessibility does not happen without mindful design and coding considerations, keeping users with disabilities in mind during the entire SDLC. Gathering feedback with user acceptance testing from disabled users. Design, code, and provide ongoing testing for digital access equality. This will require retaining legal compliance through testing all applications and versions for compliance. So what is accessibility testing? Accessibility testing ensures web and mobile applications function for all end users or customers, including those with varying disabilities and disability severities. An example of this, a user might have a slight, moderate, or severe disability for hearing, vision, or movement. Not everyone is the same. This is why we include test coverage. It ensures application functionality and features are accessible for all users. Why is it important? Because everyone needs digital access. As humans, we rely more and more on digital access for healthcare, supplies, work, and finances. Because of this, digital access must work for everyone, regardless of what devices they use. Accessibility is a right and a need. And because of this, legal ramifications exist for applications not providing accessibility to meet regulatory requirements. Up until the COVID-19 pandemic, accessibility for web and mobile applications was largely ignored or treated as an optional convenience. With the dramatic change in our day-to-day lives, it forced rapid upscaling of digital access to conduct business, work, healthcare, and shopping for supplies. However, as digital access became required to function in society, it became a serious and even life-threatening issue for those that could not use a device because of accessibility. Imagine if you could not use a website or a mobile app because of a disability. Accessing the service that you may need greatly declines. Many times getting basic needs met when disabled becomes almost impossible. In the US and globally, accessibility for people with disabilities is a legal requirement. Failure to comply with regulatory laws regarding accessibility is grounds for legal actions, with financial implications. Recently, legal procedures and fines for non-compliance have increased, and US software companies must make accessible applications and testing for compliance a priority. According to a research report by Applause, there are over 61 million adults with disabilities in the US alone. Now, those 61 million users do not account for users with minor disabilities who struggle to use digital technology. Accessible design, development, and testing are allowing all users, regardless of their ability, to access the web and mobile technology services. The benefits of accessibility testing is to ensure equal access, thus expanding the user base of either web or mobile applications. Other benefits include increased navigation options that improve usability for all end users. The more options you have, the better the user experience. Sharper color contrasts that improve visual effects. Clear decoding of page elements. This helps the user identify objects with assistive devices. Decoding page elements also means automated testing tools can easily identify them within test scripts. Providing more options that increase applications' usability improves the user experience for everyone. Producing personalized, customized applications builds a positive brand image and increases the customer base. Accessibility testing benefits the software business and the customer. Over the next several slides, we will cover more of the details on benefits of including accessibility options to improve usability and understanding. Navigation. Increasing navigation options on an application improves usability for the entire customer base. After all, every user has preferences. The easier users understand applications and services provided, the more likely they are to use it. Let's talk about menu structures that increase the usability of menus. Ordered or numbered lists are easier for assistive technology to translate into text understandably. Indicating current or in-focused items using invisible text. This makes it clear and recognizable where the user's cursor is focused. Increasing the user navigation ease using menu styling. The menu location is consistently at the top or the side throughout the pages in the application, and you should add labels as visual headings or tabs for easier user recognition. Readability. User experience benefits also include making readability a concern regardless of the screen size. Responsive pages increase readability by scaling appropriately when the window is expanded or contracted. Applications should handle various language types and remain readable and understandable. You will want to avoid using all uppercase text. Using upper and lowercase text improves the readability, as well as the translation quality of assistive devices. White space is a good thing. Include a reasonable amount of it, and ensure the application responds functionally when users zoom in and out. Many application functions become unusable when a user zooms out to view a page. For example, menu drop-downs and buttons end up off-screen or inaccessible. Sharper contrasts of color. Sharper color contrasts add a visual impact for all users. Advertisers have always understood the impact an image has on a user. Make images and application colors memorable and easy to view. Usability increases when users can view, perceive, and accurately understand the application pages. Let's talk about page optimization. Page optimization doesn't visually display to the user, but it increases the accuracy of translated descriptions used with assistive devices. What you will need: clear decoding of on-page elements or on-page optimization. This will also increase the SEO, search engine optimization, that adds context to search engine results. With the use of tags and alternate textual elements, you will improve communication and understanding. The higher the SEO, the more likely your website or mobile app turns up in online search results, which also means the potential for more users. Accessibility testing has unique features separating it from other testing types. The application is tested based on where the provider does business. It needs to follow the regulatory compliance based on the national or international laws. Testers may be verifying a single country's regulatory requirements, or 2, 3, or 20, depending on where the application conducts business. There must be understanding of testing based on the scope and range of all regulatory requirements. Accessibility testing is tied to how many regulations must be tested against. This testing is also impacted both negatively and positively by the consistency of accessibility standards and regulatory requirements. Testing focuses on usability. Usability testing becomes a high priority test rather than an optional or infrequent test. Additionally, usability testing includes depth and scope of disability types and disability severity levels. The severity level of a disability depends on the disability itself and how much it limits the user. Device integration testing with varying types of devices and possible device configurations. There are so many devices, brands, options, and configuration settings for different disabilities. What are the standards? There are 2 existing standards for accessibility: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, otherwise known as WCAG, and User Agent Accessibility Guidelines, otherwise known as UAAG. You can learn more about both of these with the links provided. Both standards are used internationally as well as within the United States. You should always keep in mind that standards are not requirements, but help software testers by providing guidelines to test applications against. WCAG has 4 main attributes to verify. Is the content perceivable? Is the app operational for those with disabilities? Is the app understandable using different means of communication? Is the app robust? Does it meet the needs of the users with disabilities? UAAG standards are focused mainly on browsers and their rendering of web content with the 4 main WCAG attributes. Let's move on and cover the basics of WCAG and UAAG standards. The descriptions do not cover every detail needed for testing, but they are intended to provide an overview of the complexity and depth of the testing required. Perceivable content is the first WCAG standard. This means you must offer options on how a user receives the information and whether it's text, images, audio, or video. Perceivable examples include: all non-text content should include a text alternative. Recordings or videos should include captions. Alternative text be available for audio and media. A sign language alternative option. And information, structure, and relationship available in text. The second principle is operable. The application functionality needs to respond not only to mouse clicks, but keyboard input and focus control. Operable does not include applications that error when a user takes too long to respond to a prompt. Examples include all functionality should respond to keyboard inputs. No keyboard traps. This means once the keyboard is used to focus content, other methods have no result. And keyboard keystrokes are not timed for an accurate response. The third WCAG principle is that the operation of the UI and information must be understandable. All users should have the ability to set their language to the desired option. The text should also include visual indicators or tools where alternative word definitions can be viewed. Readability is also very important. The reading level most understood by users is at the 8th grade or lower level. Some examples include, you can set the default language. Idioms and jargon in words have alternative definitions available. The reading level should be set at a lower secondary education level, somewhere around the 8th grade. And a mechanism should be included identifying pronunciation of words in the text. The fourth and final WCAG principle is having robust content. The coding should use unique IDs for page content elements. Assistive devices use code to translate and decipher content. Using unique IDs reduces inaccurate text translation and improves understanding. Assistive devices also require code to indicate the application state of properties at any given time. Finally, status messages and errors are defined in code so assistive devices can interpret them. Robust examples include, you should use unique IDs for all page content elements. There should be the ability to programmatically determine all states and properties. And status and error messaging are programmatically determined for assistive device interpretation. Now, we are only covering a brief sampling of the WCAG standards. For more detailed information on principles and their implications, there is a link below that you can use. The next accessibility standard is UAAG. UAAG standards specifically target digital user agents. User agents include browsers, browser extensions, media players, screen readers, and any software application or device that renders web content. User agents following UAAG 2.0 improve accessibility through the user interface and the ability to communicate with assistive technologies. UAAG principles are similar to the WCAG principles, but apply to user agents. The UAAG 5 principles include perceivable, operable, understandable, and integrates functionality with assistive agent controls. Compliance with WCAG principles ensures UAAG compliance. Testing accommodates both, one for application functionality and another test set for user agents. For review, as a tester, there's no need to test both compliance standards. Create a checklist or test script that covers the WCAG standards and run integration and device testing. Remember, UAAG follows WCAG standards but applies to user agents rather than a website and mobile applications. Apply or use integration testing between applications and devices for compliance with WCAG and UAAG without separate test executions. The UAAG standards include additional concepts and details outside of the overview in this presentation. You can review the full standards and concepts involved by using the URL provided. Let's talk about regulatory compliance considerations. Web and mobile app software providers are required to meet regulatory legal requirements. Since 2019, software development businesses have become a target for regulatory complaints and lawsuits over lack of compliance with legal regulations. According to a Frontier in Science report, over 2,200 legal suits were filed against mobile and web application providers with inaccessible applications. In the U.S., there are 2 laws regarding accessibility. First is ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the second is Section 508, the Rehabilitation Act. ADA laws require access for all users with disabilities on both mobile and web. Section 508 is a federal law applicable to federal agencies hiring or contracting IT assets that requires all applications or technology devices to be accessible for users with disabilities. QA test professionals must understand the basics of both regulations to effectively provide accessibility testing. You should definitely check out both of these links for more information on testing for regulatory compliance. ADA regulations apply to applications both for mobile and the web. Until recently, regulatory requirements have not been enforced. However, the impact in 2020 on the disabled population being unable to digitally access applications necessary to receive services has shifted regulatory focus onto software applications. Accessibility testing has become a priority. This is similar to the rise in security testing after several major data breaches and the increases on identity theft. Some important points to remember. ADA regulations are legal requirements with financial implications when not followed. Some of these requirements include the use of accessible coding, responsive to various colors, fonts, and zoom settings. Online forms and tablet elements are accessible using descriptive HTML tags and having posted documents in PDF and text-based formats. Here are some additional ADA requirements. Alternative text for images. Images must include text descriptions for assistive device translations. You should also ensure alternative methods exist for people to access information and services posted within the application. Users with disabilities may not be able to click on buttons or fill out online forms accurately. You should provide an email and phone or other accessible contact information for access to services and products. You should ensure integration functionality with assistive devices. Device testing is a critical component of accessibility testing, and images must be described with text for users unable to view an image. This is really just an overview of ADA regulatory requirements. For a full list, you will need to use the link that we've provided. QA testers should also be familiar with regulatory requirements for each country when their applications are available internationally. Different acts that you can look at are the Accessibility of Ontarians with Disabilities Act, the European Accessibility Act, and Australia's Disability Discrimination Act. You can find out more information on these international regulatory requirements by Googling any of the terms that we've previously mentioned. Or you can go to the website for the United Nations and select accessibility. To properly test accessibility, it will require you to have the knowledge and access the resources for each country that your application is doing business in. Let's move on to device types. Accessibility testing requires testing application functionality when using the following device types: screen readers, speech input and recognition, head pointers, eye trackers, single switch access, and screen magnifiers. This is very similar to testing with mobile devices. The sheer number of device types requires a selection based on the customer use. Testing teams need to determine which type of device to test with for each device type. Additionally, testers need to verify each device based on a set of configuration settings or selected options. We're going to do an overview of each assistive device type. Screen readers. This is an assistive technology tool that renders text and image content as speech or braille. Speech input and recognition. This is where the user interacts with a digital device using voice commands which are automatically converted into text. Head pointers. These are devices that interpret mouse movement as a pointer controlled by voluntary head movements. Eye trackers. This is a sensor technology that enables a computer or digital device to determine what the user is looking at. Single switch access. This is an assistive technology used by people with motor impairments to access and control computers, smartphones, electric wheelchairs, and smart home appliances. And last, screen magnifiers. This assistive technology changes the graphical output of a computer or digital device to present enlarged screen content. The complexity of accessibility testing means test strategy, planning, and test documentation becomes essential. Testers must determine what can and cannot be tested. They must document what devices and functionality were tested. You should always retain the tests and test plans that were executed. Testers should also retain defect records. Testing documentation means test scripts, plans, and test summary reports. Manage risk around what cannot be tested. For example, QA testers may not have access to a particular device type for testing. Additionally, they may also only test one type of screen reader or head tracker. What are the testing types for accessibility testing? Accessibility testing has 4 main testing types: manual, automated, crowdsourcing, and user acceptance. Most accessibility testing begins with manual test execution against a checklist of regulatory requirements and standards. Accessibility testing may be scripted for automated testing or outsourced to a crowdsourced testing service. Crowdsourcing testing services provide accessibility testing by using teams of diverse users with disabilities or accessibility needs. Accessibility testing done as user acceptance testing verifies the application provides acceptable accessibility to actual disabled users or customers. As with most testing types, the testing types used change based on the tester's experience and the knowledge of accessibility. Let's go over some of the testing techniques. Accessibility testing uses standard testing techniques that include functional, device, integration, compatibility, usability, and regulatory compliance. Functional testing includes testing the application functionality, including all accessible options. Device testing requires repeating functional tests with a selected set of assisted devices. Device testing requires repeating functional tests with a selected set of assisted devices. Integration testing ensures the application functions as expected when communicating with different device types. Compatibility testing ensures that devices and applications function when used together, similar to both devices and integration testing. Usability testing ensures the user experience is acceptable for all user types. Regulatory compliance testing verifies all legal requirements are covered within the application functionality. Accessibility testing techniques can be combined. Consider combining them to save execution time. For example, functionally test the application while using devices to complete functional, device, compatibility, and integration testing in a single execution. Regulatory compliance may be best executed off a checklist listing each requirement or by creating a test matrix that includes all applicable standards and requirements. Perform usability testing throughout the testing cycle. Exploratory testing works well for usability testing. This type of testing really does involve significant challenges that include understanding and testing against regulatory requirements for all countries the application are available in, assistive device access for testing, understanding how to use multiple types of assistive devices for testing, adding accessibility test execution to existing regression or scheduled test executions, and scope of variances in disability types and severity levels. There are numerous tools available to assist you with accessibility testing, both manual and automated. Many tools include built-in checking against selected regulatory and legal requirements. Some tools may also offer assistive device forms for testing. Here is a list of some of the tools available. Before finding a new tool, consider checking the development tools in use for built-in accessibility testing features, including device access. Many of the modern development tools for the web and mobile include basic accessibility testing features. Even document tools include accessibility testing. Microsoft Word and PowerPoint both include accessibility testing features under the Review menu. Additionally, check device farm services for assistive device access. Many provide emulators to assist with accessibility device testing. Thank you for joining us. You've successfully completed the @SQA's Accessibility Testing Overview. Visit atsqa.org for access to other professional QA training and certification options to build and enhance your QA testing career.